Hello, everybody, again. This is Nick Christophers of Bobtails. Today we have a very special guest, a good friend, nice guy, great guy, very talented, David Uslan. And we'd like to welcome you to the show, Dave.
It's nice to be here, buddy. It's nice to be here. It's about time.
Yeah, you're not kidding. That's for sure. I do want to say it was really amazing hanging out with you a couple of years ago with Billy. We had a lot of fun, and I was very interested in listening to you speak and hearing what you have to say. So it was definitely enlightening to say the least. You know.
Well, Billy's a longtime friend, as I know he is with you, and it's nice to be with family, and it's rare nowadays with everybody spread out across the country like everybody is, and how busy everybody is. But those times that we are together, we cherish those moments.
That's for sure. Well, I'm gonna start with a couple of questions. The first one is, I know you developed a lot with the animated multimedia, for teenagers and for toddlers. I think with the brand called Genius Brand, if I'm correct.
Mhm.
And can you give us a little more insight into your role with that discipline?
So I'm going to give you the quick breakdown of my geeky life. This geeky life that I live for the most part. My world is very much a world of content, the content business, and it doesn't matter if it's based off of comic books or novels or life rights or newspaper articles or certain brands. Wherever there is good content, that's where you will find a Uslan. And with Genius Brands, it's just a good example because right now, Genius it's a wonderful kids company, but the head of that company was a very long time friend of Stan Lee, like my father was. I mean, I've known Stan since birth, but my dad, went back to the 60s with Stan, and Andy, who's the head of Genius Brands, went back a very long ways with him as well. And when Stan passed, those that really loved and respected him came together and figured out a way to pull together his likeness rights, image, signature, the bulk of the IP that he created after his Marvel years, able to bring that all together and put it under one umbrella. And my father and I have the honor of being very much gatekeepers to all of that. So, Stan could be immortalized the way that he should, right alongside people like Walt Disney and other creators of that size and consequence. So my pops and I work hand in hand with Genius Brands, and there's a ton of exciting stuff coming. Not to mention that this past year was, and actually in December, was Stan's 100th birthday. So it was quite the celebration, and wherever he is, I'm sure he's looking down, smiling.
Yeah, hope for that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned comics, which I know what created your passion for comic books? I'm also a comic book fan myself, big time. I mean, Thor's my favorite character, but I'm even wearing Thor's hammer, believe it or not.
Nice.
Yeah. What created your passion for comic books? I mean, me as well. Me for me, I was an artist. I knew how to draw, and I went to SVA, for as a comic creator. Um, Now, for yourself, what was it? Your father's influence that got you interested in the
You
comic
know, it
world?
was it was it was a mix of a couple things. Obviously, my father's influence was key, but I really think that this world of creativity and imagination runs in our family DNA. And, you know, my sister, even though she's not in this core business, she's in a specific facet of the entertainment industry on the makeup and cosmetic side. You know, even my mom, you know, is involved in this business in different ways, more from a philanthropic side and interesting people that she comes across in her daily activities, like in Africa and whatnot. And it just runs in the family blood. But since I've been a kid, you know, the people that I've been around who were also very influential, so many of them were monumental in the comic book business, in the film business, in the gaming business, all over, and it just rubbed off on me. And you know, at an early age, one, I've been to virtually every Comic Con I've been alive, and or at least not every Comic Con. Let's just say every one in New York, pretty much since I've been alive, and everyone in San Diego since I've been an adolescent. My pops was at every single New York Comic Con since the first one in the early 60s. And again, it just runs in the blood. And I'm on the board of advisors with my pops for the San Diego Comic Con Permanent Museum, you know, which is their amazing museum that they opened up the doors to a couple years ago. And we just, you know, I just do whatever I can that touches these worlds and these environments, because it really makes me the most happy. And again, it doesn't matter if it's comic books or graphic novels or kids books, or it could be even art books or photography of some kind, published photography. It could be cookbooks, right? Wherever there's a creative hook, that's what I spark to. And it's also, you know, leads into why, you know, we're friends and why we're all talking, because running into the stories and the people that I run into, that you run into on a probably regular basis, especially when I was living back home in Jersey, you hear interesting stories all the time. And you hear these interesting stories from really interesting, unique people, that immediately somebody like yourself and myself is like, God damn, I wish more people can hear this story, you know, from their own lips, you know. Or you think, oh my God, this person would love to hear that's this story, or that person would love to. I mean, listen, it's the reason why the true crime genre will forever be one of, if not the most popular genre of content out there for the most part. And or if not that, you know, one of the top two or three for sure. And we run into this every day. And one of the cool things about what I do is, you know, figure out how to place those stories and how to open them up to the public the best way. That might not be, by the way, a film or a TV show or a comic book. That might be a temporary exhibit at the Mom Museum, which I'm on the board of advisors for, you know, in Las Vegas.
That was
Or,
my next question.
yeah, so it might not be, you know, something that is traditional, but nevertheless, there are so many outlets nowadays for people to tell their stories in unique and captivating and now very personal, intimate, immersive ways, you know?
Hmm. Well, you mentioned, well, before I even get to the Mob Museum question, because I was going to get to that, but I wanted to ask you something about a very special character in you and your father's life, Batman, which I know you guys are very big with that. In your years of growing up and being around that character, he has changed tremendously. You know, I mean, for me, anyway, I think Christian Bale really um, was the persona of Batman, in my opinion. I thought he really brought him out. But I wanted to see your opinion and not to be mean to anybody or any other actors, but I want to see your thoughts because you're very close to the character. So, and is there any specific actor that you think really personified that character?
Um, you're asking a very loaded question.
I know.
We could probably spend this entire time talking about this very question. Listen, I'm biased when it comes to this. Okay, so I really have like three three thoughts on this that are each different. Personally, nothing is as close to my heart as the first movie in '89 with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and that's because of the impact it had um, on my family in particular. And that one came together over the 10 years from the point that I was born through 9 years old, and it was an epic crusade that my father and his partner Benjamin Melniker were on to get that first movie made. And because of that, it will forever have a very, very um, close relationship with myself, with my entire family. And if it wasn't for that movie, we wouldn't have franchises as we know it today. The entire business would be different. So I would say that is probably the one closest to my heart. The Nolan Batman movies were a golden age era of filmmaking in my dad's eyes. And during that period of time at Warner Brothers, for the sheer fact that Chris and his amazing wife, Emma, and the entire team on that movie, they had a lot of freedom. And because they had a lot of freedom as filmmakers, they were able to dive into stories that we would never, ever, ever see. And that's why one of the things that made my father and all of us very happy was the fact that we were able to tell the story of Ra's al Ghul and blend that into Batman's story, which was so important to Batman in the 1970s when my father was writing Batman and really involved with it from a comic book side. So those movies were amazing for that specific reason of creative freedom that came with it. Then there is the little asterisk, and that would be this last Batman movie with Pattinson. And I would have to agree with my dad that if you were to ask the three most important people associated with the creation of Batman, Bob Kane,
Okay.
Bill Finger, and Jerry Robinson. So, Bob Kane and Bill Finger co-created Batman together, even though Bob Kane got all of the credit and glory while they were living. But they co-created it. And Jerry Robinson created a bunch of the other key characters like Joker and Alfred the Butler and Robin and Cap, just a bunch of great ones. If you were to ask those three, which was the best Batman movie, they would probably, I would hedge my bet and say that they would probably say this last one, because this last one was really a detective story. And Batman was originally created in Detective Comics as a detective, where it wasn't about the gadgets and it wasn't about flying around and it wasn't about the swanky Batmobile. It was about his incredible intelligence, the skill that he had with detective work, and using realistic technology, right, that was within his grasp to get shit done. And that's what this last movie was. It was a real detective movie. I think the only other movie feature-length Batman that really captured that detective-esque quality. Do you remember Mask of the Phantasm?
Yes.
So that movie was even though it was animated,
Yes.
um,
Right.
it was it was an incredible detective story.
Mhm.
And I think that those two captured what the original creators intended better than any other one. So that is the long-winded explanation of how I break all that down.
Interesting. Very interesting take on it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, just for shits and giggles, I know this was before you were born, I think. Um, I'm sure you've seen it. What was your thoughts on watching Adam West in the TV series Batman? I mean, I loved it when I was a
Well,
kid.
listen, it's again, it's different than my father. My dad was not a happy camper with that TV show because it went against everything that Batman was supposed to be, and people were laughing at this incredible Dark Knight, and it was everything again that he wasn't supposed to be. Um, for me, it was different, because again, I grew up in a household where it was all Batman, and Batman was around us all the time. And as a kid, I loved the lighter side stuff, right? Because even when I was like a really, really young kid, I couldn't read the Frank Miller stuff, and I couldn't read, even the stuff that my dad wrote. So I liked the lighter stuff. And then, as I got a little bit older, and started going to, as I kept going to Comic Cons, but got a little bit older, meeting Adam West, and his relationship with my father and how that grew all for the better as the years passed. It was great, and I really respected him and what that piece of history was to the IP. Funny enough, there is a whole bunch of great impersonators out there of Adam West Batman, but there are a couple that are very renowned out there in the Comic-Con community. And I'll just say and keep it real short. For my kid's birthday, my kid is 7 now. For her seventh birthday, I got one of the great impersonators to do a video for her that is extraordinary. I mean, it's about as Adam West as you can imagine in the Batman outfit. My kid loves watching it, and ever so often she pulls it out. So she's a fan of the original one as well.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to the Mob Museum where we met um, a couple of years back. Now, I know you were somewhat involved with some, like organizing some events, things like that, like with the Frotto brothers. Are you still, well, before I even get to you being involved with it, what were you a mob enthusiast prior to getting involved with the Mob Museum? Did you always have a fascination with that world?
Yeah, my fascination goes back to when I was a kid growing up. I'm a Jersey boy, so where I grew up in Jersey was about a little less than 15 miles outside of the city, outside of New York.
Hmm.
And where I grew up, it was all Italian. And I grew up in a little town called Cedar Grove, which was on the border of other towns like Verona and Montclair, and about, I don't know, 10 minutes outside of Newark. Hop on 280 and you're in Newark in 2 seconds. So it was very Italian. And I like to joke that I kind of thought I was Italian until I went to college, which was in Indiana of all places, when I realized I was actually Jewish and not Italian. A lot of Jews go to IU as well. So, but it was all Italian, and I'm a huge history fanatic, like huge history fanatic. My dad is as well. My grandfather was. My grandmother on my mom's side was. We had a lot of history lovers in our family. And in college, fast forwarding a little bit, I studied ancient history, mainly Roman and Greek history, but Italian history for sure. And I just loved Italian history and true crime, the birth of organized crime. And I loved reading these books when I was little. And again, I would have friends whose dads and uncles would give me books to read. And I saw stuff when I was a kid as well, living where I lived and befriending friends who I had. But I always looked at things from kind of a historical point of view, and that's really where my interests lie. I know everybody from back east, everybody has a story. Our family has a story as well, and there were some pretty amazing Jewish gangsters in our family's history back in the day. And plus, my grandfather on my dad's side was a stonemason and in the construction business on the Jersey Shore for his whole life, and also had incredible stories building homes for certain people and having headbutts with certain people, butting heads with certain people. And there's just a lot of history there where I was always intrigued. But the intrigue though was always a step back, right? Looking at it just kind of from the outside, until I got out of college and realized that I had relationships in the entertainment space that could be helpful to friends and friends of friends, that could be helpful to me with stories that I knew that I just loved and really wanted to tell in different ways. And, and I just started to use those relationships all for the better. And before I knew it, I was in charge of producing things like AMC Mob Week for years and years and years for AMC, and doing all their interstitial documentaries and intros, and was able to bring a ton of friends onto that and had an amazing time for a bunch of years. And during that time, kind of played around in the real documentary space and did some stuff for National Geographic and PBS and Discovery. And, listen, there's no money in the documentary space, obviously, but it was really awesome to have that pipeline to these types of opportunities that I was able to constantly explore. And then that kind of steamrolled into the publishing side, because of my personal business and all the things that I do that touches publishing in general. I was able to develop a lot of relationships with publishers, domestic and internationally, that were intrigued by the stuff that you and I are intrigued by. And knowing the right editors and the right literary agents out there. And before I knew it, little old David found himself kind of at the center of those that were producing the most viewed content in this genre. And started having, the ability to push things down those through those opportunities, through those doors. And that led into the Mob Museum, because, well over 10 years ago now, which I cannot believe that it's been over 10 years since the start of that museum. I was there opening day, and again, I knew a lot of people that were involved in the birth of that museum. I do a lot of business in Las Vegas in general, especially downtown. Back in the day when folks like Tony Shea were around and helping with really revitalize what has been really revitalized well in the last number of years, and I was much part of that, and I love Las Vegas, and I love that history too. It's important history, and I made a point to, reach out and befriend those that were involved in putting that museum together as soon as I heard about it. And now it's an honor and a privilege to call a number of those guys very close friends. Jonathan, who runs the museum, who's head of the museum, Jeff, who runs really all of the exhibits and everything historical, and the rest of the team behind them. They're all amazing. And I'm happy to help in any way I can. And fortunately, over the last number of years, a lot of that has been with, helping bring in premieres and talent who's involved in certain movies or TV shows and books to come in for programming and premieres and all of that good stuff. And as the museum grows, which it's growing quickly, especially in size, because they're about ready to expand that property big time. I'm thrilled for what has been done and all the things that are coming too.
Oh, sounds cool. Okay. Yeah, I love to visit when they do that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I encourage anybody who's listening, who's watching this, to go on to really any of the social media platforms or their website, sign up, get the stuff, because they also do like a lot of satellite programming. And there's also a lot of digital programming too, where you don't have to be in Vegas, to benefit from their knowledge and their connectivity to amazing people who are doing lectures and doing things all the time. So I encourage everybody to go and sign up and follow and do what you can, because it's some really cool stuff that they do on a regular basis.
Yes, they do. I mean, they interviewed me at one time, so we had a little show that we just did, which is a lot of fun. Um, they You've also been involved in a couple of projects, like the Lego Movie 1 and 2, National Treasure. Um, what are you currently working on now for 2023?
There's a bunch of good stuff that's happening right now. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that I am really excited about, I have to be tight-lipped about a number of things. But I will say this, and I'll be I'll be vague yet make it sexy. I'm like a fifth generation Yankee fanatic. All right, my family is about as hardcore Yankees as you can find, which also makes it really hard to socialize, even shake hands with anybody from Boston in our lives. But it is we're a real Yankee family, and we are involved in a scripted series right now with the Yankees, the Steinbrenner family, and have some other incredible partners on a series that is really a dream project for my dad and I. We have a fantastic financing company studio. We have an amazing streamer as a distributor. And hopefully in 2024, you guys will see all of that come to life. And I'm sure this will become very public in the next month or two. But there's some really exciting stuff on that front. So that's really cool. the next Joker movie is in production right now, which is very exciting. Joaquin Phoenix is back, and Todd Phillips is back, and Lady Gaga's in this one, so it's got a great cast, and Todd Phillips and Joaquin and Emma, one of our producing partners. These people are some of the best people in the entertainment industry. So humble, so respectful, so incredibly talented. I wouldn't be surprised if this next Joker movie gets Joaquin another nomination and others alongside of him potentially. So that's really, really exciting, and that's coming pretty quick. I have a graphic novel series that is coming out with Macmillan probably early next year, that I am writing with two friends of mine that, again, we haven't even announced to the public yet, but two very prominent young comedians in this industry, both on stage and in film and television, that are buddies of mine, very prominent. And all of us are writing a fictional comedic action graphic novel story that is it's pretty outrageous. So we have that coming in. My two buddies who I'm writing it with, who again are big on screen, they're going to end up starring in the TV adaptation of this graphic novel series, which is going to be great. And there's just a lot of stuff, other stuff too, playing a lot in the technology and Web3 space. And I have companies that do a great many things, but that are very involved with handling programming for live events around the world. I just got back from the Red Sea Film Festival in Saudi Arabia, and CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, Philippine Blockchain Week, all of which myself or my company has a lot to do with on a consulting, advising, programming side. So there's just a ton of stuff that's keeping me busy and keeping me on planes and destroying my lower back while all this is happening.
Well, just to leave everybody off with this interview, if anybody wants to check into things that you're doing, things that you're moving along with, or just to check out stuff, where can people find any information?
I'm all over social media. So you could find me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all of those. And, I'm pretty good, despite always being in cars and on planes and on trains and on boats and everywhere but home. I'm pretty good with connectivity. And again, when it comes to this particular genre, the genre of the mob, of organized crime, of all of that, I love it. I really do. And even though I've been in LA way too long, I still have a real connectivity to that because of my roots in different ways. And so please reach out. I love posting different things that are happening within these worlds, whether it's again in the US or in Canada or in Mexico or Argentina or wherever the fuck in the world now. But I like to do that. And again, if anybody who's listening ends up going to Vegas, going to the Mom Museum, please drop me a line. And whether I'm there or not, everybody who works at that place is super friendly, would love to know who's coming and just to shake a hand and say hello. So please let us know if you're going to be going to Vegas anytime soon.
Awesome. Well, David, I appreciate you coming on. It was great seeing you. I'm going to be probably emailing you once this goes up, I'm going to email you the link.
Great.
So,
well, Nick, you stay out of trouble, buddy. And as always, my phone's always on for bail money if you need it. And you guys have a real good evening. And I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
Me too. I appreciate it. Thank you, David.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Have a good night. All right. See you, boys.
Please subscribe, share, like, comment, whatever the heck it is. Just keep us in your thoughts. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.